if you step onto the circle, and then you can step off if you want, you don't have to stay on the circle, it'll actually open up the graphic for you. You can see the images that are posted. Oops, just move out of the way. So each of the buildings has 3 blades. Each blade has 4 sides, and each side has 6 images. So that means 24 images per blade, 72 images per building, and 288 images in the environment in total. Feel free to look around the one that I've put up. I just put an example of what we might do for one of our emotional and social intelligence classes. Each side of the blade has 2 activities on it. And so this is another way that we can add a physical change to the session for our learners. Or you could do it in a meeting or a team building activity. So, you know, we get people out of the classroom and have them come out here and we present the activity. Let's say it's the one on self-awareness, and the facilitator would talk a little bit about, remind them what self-awareness is, and go through the steps that they're supposed to complete with a partner in their activity. And then because we're out here in this nice open space, the partnerships, the pairs of 2, can break out nicely into different areas around, and so they can sort of speak quietly to each other and share the results from their self-awareness assessment and talk about what that means to them and what changes they might make to improve their self-awareness. So it allows not only for a change in physicality, but it allows for a larger breakout area if we're going to have just pairs. So it's nice to have that option as well. So some other uses for the blades might be things like maybe we want to load some images for our strategic thinking class and have people look at those and you know, maybe we post a topic and there's a discussion around how they might strategically think about the concept. Maybe we're trying to teach a process and we'd have them go around the blade, and each side of the blade is a different step in the process. Maybe we're trying to teach people about innovation, and we can present a bunch of different innovations on 3 sides of the blade, and then the 4th side might be an issue, and then we would ask students to think innovatively about that issue. We've also talked about, we haven't done it yet, we've actually talked about using the images for team building. Maybe you'd have, you know, because there are so many images available, maybe we could have posted up of different people in different places and have a scavenger hunt. The blade images are static, but because there are so many of them, I tend to think of them almost as not static, because you can look from picture to picture to picture, and so you can actually build the dynamicism into multiple images on one side of the blade.
But just to be clear, you can, as an administrator, upload new images on the fly to the blades.
Absolutely, I can. That's right. I can.
So in that way, it's the dynamic that you can change the images. Yeah.
That's right, and that's actually true. It's a great point, Anders. It's true of any of the images in the environment. As an administrator or a facilitator, none of you have facilitator abilities because you didn't log in with passwords today. But as a facilitator, I can load up new images everywhere, and that includes even the floor plates under the chairs over between the buildings. So you'll notice there's some flowers under the chairs and that sort of thing. All of those things are changeable. The only thing I can't change in here is the weather. In our other environment, I can change the weather, but everything else I can change. So just because I've mentioned the chairs, notice there's also lots of room for networking, casual discussion, whether it's breaks, before and after class, or during class. Having a less formal space is something that we've found that's really important for getting people comfortable with the environment. And if you want to if we want to move over and try using the chairs, let's come over to the green set of chairs, and I'll kind of stand in the middle so everybody can hear me.
Yeah, they're funny. They only have one sitting animation here, so you're not slumping down in the bean chairs.
That's right. So the chairs are great. They're easy to sit in. As long as you're in front of it, you can just click on it and you'll sit down. You are very prim and proper when you sit down. One of the great new features in 3.0, the 3.0 product, is that the avatars themselves are never really static. If you're standing still, you're still moving. Even if you're sitting down, you're still moving a little bit. So if you happen to be sitting, you know, focus in on your shoulders or your knee, and you'll notice that you're actually, or your hands, you're actually moving slightly. And this is just another way to subconsciously keep people engaged in the environment. And again, having this less formal area we find is really important. So, for example, in our orientation class, we have a great program that's 3 days. The second day is spent, you know, entirely in TELUS Collaboration House. We have multiple guest speakers come in. Some of them are the same guest speakers every time we hold the orientation program. Some of them are new each time. That provides us a nice dichotomy in that the people who are present every time, they can see how comfortable they are with the environment. But we also have a director come in who it's their very first time in the environment, and so they're as uncomfortable with the technology as everyone else is. So and we encourage the director and everybody else to be open and honest about the issues that they're having, you know, and what happens is the students end up, or the participants end up teaching each other. We make them comfortable enough with what they've learned themselves that they almost instantly start teaching each other, either through the text or by demonstrating. So it's a great opportunity for people to not just learn, but build their learning by teaching others. So I'd like to pause now and ask if there are any questions. Either text or verbally. So the question about external users, because this environment is external to TELUS, there are no firewall issues. Bandwidth issues depend completely on your internet connection. So what's interesting is that we find that people who are inside the firewall often have bandwidth issues if they're connecting through the firewall via VPN. So let's say I'm at home today, I'm connecting to my email through VPN, and then I decide to go to TELUS Collaboration House. That severely inhibits their bandwidth because they have to go to the VPN server and then through the proxy server to get back out to this server. So we have people drop VPN before they come into this environment, and that gets rid of all of the bandwidth issues. For people who are working in one of the offices on a LAN, I've never had anybody have bandwidth issues. For people like me, I was telling Anders before people were arriving that because I live out in the middle of nowhere on a cattle ranch, I don't actually have really great internet service. I get my internet via a microwave dish on a local mountain. And so my bandwidth is not awesome. It's not terrible, but it's not awesome. So I'm using audio today rather than audio and video because my bandwidth is not always enough to handle both, and I didn't want to risk my audio cutting out during the presentation. I just need to scroll back a little bit and read some of the questions because I didn't get them all as we were going through. So how long did it take to build this particular environment out? You know what, Avaya is amazing. I can't say enough good things about the AvayaLive team. They're just so conscientious and brilliant and innovative at design. I would say from the moment we started talking about it to what you're standing in right now was probably 3 months. And they could have done it more quickly if I had been on a tighter turnaround, but I wasn't. So we had time to sort of do a good testing bit in between the different phases. The weather, like I said a few minutes ago, I can change the weather in the other environment. It's part of the administration panel features. It's not something I asked for in this particular environment, so I guess they didn't build it for me automatically. Could I go back to Avaya and say, I'd like to the people in Vancouver to feel at home, so could we have a stormy, rainy looking kind of atmosphere? And I'm sure that they'd have no problem building that in at all. In this particular one, though, I can't change the weather at this point in time.
There was a question about the webcam. If you want to try it out, feel free to right-click and under collaboration, hit share webcam. So I've done it on my avatar here. So if you want to mouse over me, I'm jumping up and down here. You'll see you can see my video here. So there was a question about that, and I'll be curious to hear your response too. Are people actually using the webcam functionality, and are you finding it adds value or not?
The facilitators absolutely use it, and the students that they use it, or the people in the meeting, depending on whether it's a meeting or a class. We find that they really like it when the speaker is using a webcam. And then in the audience, it kind of depends from person to person. You know, some people are comfortable on it and some people are not. So it sort of depends on each person. We can usually get everybody to at least load a picture if they're not comfortable with putting on the webcam, because that is an option as well. John, your question about the corporate firewall, your corporate firewall would not pose a problem at all to get here. Because it's just the internet. So as long as your firewall allows you to get to the internet, then you'd have no problem. There is a plugin to install, as you all know, because you had to install it to get here. So the only corporate issue, and we have this issue within TELUS, is if your employees don't have administrators on computers, you'll have to work with IT to get the plugin pushed out to them, or set up an install somehow so that you can get it installed across the organization. John, your question about 3D. So, you could fly in the previous version of the software, but it was not advertised. The administrators knew how to do it so that they could take good pictures, but it was not something that we actually encourage people to do. This is actually built on a gaming platform. So I don't know if you play Call of Duty. It's the same platform. It's the Unreal gaming platform engine. So all of those actions that are built for the gaming platform theoretically are here as well, but they suppress a lot of them. I have not successfully been able to fly in this new version of the software. So I don't know if they suppressed it or if the command has changed. In terms of creating vertical spaces, not 100% sure I know what you mean, but I think that means that the answer is no.
Yeah, this is not, for those of you that come from a Second Life background, this is not a user-generated environment where you can go in as an avatar and create 3D objects.
What you see is what you get. The only thing that users can change is what's on the boards or the images, that sort of thing.
So you have to work in the AvayaLive editor to create the 3D assets.
That's right. In terms of the question about webcams being distracting, that's not something that we've found so far. As Anders pointed out, if you want to see his webcam, you actually have to point the plus sign at him. You have to point your mouse at him. You don't see them all the time. And even if you have all the names showing up across people's chests or their avatars, you can actually make those disappear as well. Those are not permanent fixtures. You have the opportunity. So just press F6 on your keyboard, and that will actually take away the name signs. So you can declutter your own view pretty much as you want. So it's not really distracting, and it's a lot of the distraction stuff like webcams and jumping. Like when we first started using this, I had a lot of people come to me and say they were worried. Well, people are going to just jump around in class and be goofs. Like they're not going to be focused. We need to, really, nail down on people and not let them, do these things. But in fact, what I've found, I decided to take the absolute opposite tack and say to everybody, okay, jump, run around, jump and run. You can do some pretty great flying leaps if you want. If you combine some of the commands, change your hair to purple, do whatever you want, get it out of your system. And so, after people do jump 5 or 6 times, it's not that exciting anymore. Just like the webcam's not that big of a deal anymore. And so, I tend to leave some time at the beginning during introductions and that sort of thing to get people using those things so they are less distracting. My system crashed. I'm just trying to. AvayaLive is available to the general public. This environment is not. This is a TELUS-specific environment, but AvayaLive offers lots of environments that you can go and try out on your own if you want to check it out, or you could talk to Anders or one of the AvayaLive folks, and I'm sure they would give you a tour of all of the different templates and talk to you about the different opportunities through AvayaLive. By weather, I do mean the image on the skybox, exactly. So let me give you an example. So in my other environment, I usually have it with blue sky and clouds, but I can change it so the sky is almost a golden, stormy color. In fact, one of the reasons we don't use that sky very often is because one of my facilitators grew up in an area where there are often tornadoes, and she said it looks exactly like tornado weather. And so it's a very, ominous sort of sky. I put it up at Halloween, and that's about it. So yeah, we have, if you want, you can change. Exactly, find a cellar. I haven't had them dig a cellar, so we definitely don't want the tornado weather in here. But they can make it so that you can change the sky if you want. Can I change my name? You can try changing your name by press F2, which is the same window that you use to customize your avatar. There are 3 tabs. The back tab, the final tab, I think it's called Profile, might let you change your name. I'm not 100% sure because you're not logged in. I'm not exactly sure what, or not, with a password, I'm not sure what capabilities you'll have. What are they mentally doing in a physical classroom? Andrew, can you elaborate on your question? What are they mentally doing in a physical classroom? I think that was
a comment on what you said about letting people run around that
Oh, right. And exactly. So it's a great point. Like, think of all the physical distractions in a physical room. If you have windows, there's all kinds of things going on outside. If you don't have windows, then people are often distracted by the fact that they don't have windows and there's a closed-in feeling. There's stuff on the walls, there's people moving and shuffling around, and hey, what's that guy doing? What's that on his desk? And you have to sort of get it all out of the way. Other questions?
So, Lynette, could you give us a sense of what type of sessions you're holding here? What are the you run in different orientation and training sessions, right? What are the topics? What are the formats? The length and how many participants?
Yeah, so
how you run them?
Sure. This is the learning environment. So mostly this will get used for learning. So programs like our orientation program I already mentioned, it's called Welcome to TELUS. That's a 3-day program. Although we don't do it all in here, we kind of mix it up because we introduce all the tools that we use at TELUS, and one of those tools happens to be live meetings. So some of the class happens in live meeting. We had 900 people in our emerging leader program last year. 90% of their classes were in a TELUS collaboration house. So we had to put 900, we had to teach 900 people how to use the environment, and then over the year, they would come in and they would attend different sessions. We have our vendors. Just because of our education model, we don't actually have a delivery or a development team within TELUS. We work with education vendors to do that. So we brought all of our education vendors in that that worked with that emerging leader group, and we taught them how to use the environment, taught them how to make their programs interactive. It's still an ongoing process. The more you use the environment, the more cool stuff you learn about how to make it interactive. We also have a new team leader program that we teach in here. We teach emotional and social intelligence. Emotional and social intelligence is one of my most favorite things to teach in here because when we first talked about doing it, I got a lot of feedback like, how are you going to teach emotional and social intelligence in a virtual environment where people can't show emotions and there's no social interaction? So when people said that, I always tell a quick story about how when I first introduced this environment to a couple of customers on behalf of AvayaLive, they were all very uncomfortable. We spent 45 minutes together. They were sort of all grouped together at the beginning, and me and the Avaya guys were sort of, you know, away from them because they weren't only comfortable with each other. By the end of the 45 minutes, they were jumping and clapping and doing other things to emote their feelings by using the gestures and movements of the avatar. And we were also in a circle, like I call that a social circle, where, you know, if you've got, you know, 6 people, inevitably you sort of all standing equal distance from each other in a circle. And we had naturally, subconsciously done that even with our avatars. So there is a huge amount of emotional and social intelligence to be gotten and to take advantage of in virtual environments like this, if you're willing to take the time to teach people how to do it, like, you know, working in responding by using a physical gesture rather than a verbal one, or even a textual one, although the text is fabulous as well. Putting on certain questions, issues on a parking lot or other space which you eventually get to. So Joel, your question about the virtual parking lot, you're looking at it. The text window acts as a virtual parking lot. So if you haven't figured it out, you can actually move the text box around and resize it. So your text box is probably the same size as it was when you came in. Mine is a long banner down the right-hand side so that I can scroll through and look at all of the questions that have been coming in while we're talking. So I can look through the whole list at once. Anybody can be asking questions on there. If I do have to parking lot a question, and because I can't answer it in the class or in the session I'm holding, I will verbally parking lot it. I might annotate it on the whiteboard if I'm in a room where there is a board. And thanks, Mr. Incredible, for your comment about the psychosocial observation. I'm guessing that means that you were able to change your name. Yeah, to my knowledge, no, John, it does not. The environment does not capture the text chats. So if I wanted to keep it for later use, I would just highlight it all and cut and paste it out. I do have the ability to do that, and all of you do as well. If you wanted to highlight everything and take it, you can.
What are the biggest size of group? You mentioned 900 people, but I assume you're not bringing them in all at the same time, right?
No,
what's the biggest size group you have, and what's the typical size?
It's a good point. Thanks, Anders. So at the time when we did that, I was really the only person who knew enough about the environment to teach other people how to use it, other than our facilitators, but they're vendors, and we didn't want to get them involved in introducing 900 people to the environment. So I took people in groups of 75 in tours. So we had, you know, it was actually exhausting. I did 3 one-hour tours back to back for 15 different days, and we had people signing up. So those are probably, I'm going to say those are the largest groups I've had in, you know, 75. I've maybe had a group of 80. When I have more than, well, in the old version of the environment, we did not have an audio wizard. So I don't know if anybody had to use the audio wizard when you came in. There's a great feature in this version of the software that's, if you're having trouble hearing or speaking, press F3 and it opens an audio troubleshooting wizard, and you can answer a series of questions, and it helps you figure out what's wrong with your audio. In the previous version, we didn't have that, and so I had to manually check every audio and fix every audio issue with every person that came through. So if I had more than 20 people in a group, I would have extra people come in, audio checkers come in and help. So I taught a group of people how to do audio checks, and they would come in and help me support. Now the number of people I need to help for audio checks is much smaller because of the wizard. I would say maybe it's still pretty new to us, but I'm going to say maybe less than 10% of people need manual support for audio check because the wizard is just so excellent. So the larger groups, I do have help at the very beginning, and then once I get everybody through audio, then I encourage the audio checkers to go do other things and check their email, whatever, and then I take the groups on my own to facilitate. Explain game-based. So TELUS is doing some game-based learning. I am not on that team. Is the easiest answer. But John, if you're interested in learning more about what TELUS is doing for game-based learning, I would more than happily put you in touch with the folks at TELUS on my team that are doing the game-based stuff. I don't really want to talk about it, only because I don't want to say something that's not true. It is not. You do, as far as I know, Anders, maybe you know differently, but it's not possible to view offline.
Although, right, we actually have Stylianis is doing a video recording of this session. So if you check back on our Facebook site, you'll find a link.
That's right. So if you want to see this particular session again, you could view it on the video. But if you just want to go into an environment, you have to be online. So anybody who...
Yeah, game-based activities. We're working actually with Nuket here on a simulation for a hospital chain with non-player characters and some simulation-based activities. So it is, I would say that it's not as flexible as Unity because it's based on an older, neutered version of the Unreal game engine. But it is certainly possible to do some aspects of that. You can have non-player characters, you can have them talk, you can click on objects and see them be animated, for instance. So some of that is possible, and we should be interesting to learn more about what you guys are doing in that area. Tell us too.
Yeah, so as John Lester has suggested, he's going to connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can chat more about it later. And, you know, anybody feel free to connect with me that way, or it's Lynette.van_Steinberg@telus.com. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I didn't make up my name or my long email address. But you can get me on LinkedIn for sure. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I would like to thank everybody for their attention today. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. I hope you're feeling inspired and innovative. Anders, is there anything else you'd like to say to wrap things up?
Thanks, everyone. This has been a great meeting, and thank you so much, Lynette. This has been such an enlightening presentation, and it's great to see that you're using it at such a scale. That's really encouraging for all of us in the Virtual Words community. So I hope to see you all back at our weekly meetings. Well, check back on our Facebook page for updates about our meetings, whether it be in the Engaged environment or in. We'll be back in Second Life next week.
Great. So everybody press 1 to wave to say goodbye. And then to leave, just press escape, and you can then close your browser window to leave. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynette.
Yeah, you bet, Anders.